everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by former National Guardsman, one of the heroes of the Paris train terrorist attack. And of course, we can't leave this one out, Dancing with the Stars contestant, Alek Skarlatos. Alek, thank you for being with us on The Right View. I'm sure you're asked all the time to tell your story. For people that may have forgotten, you were involved in that incident on a Paris train a number of years ago now. You and your friends were on the train and you thwarted a terrorist attack. We all probably remember seeing that play out. But tell me about yourself and leading up to that moment, who were you before the Paris train attack?
Well, I like to think I was the same person, but basically what had happened was my childhood friend and I got to talking while I was in Afghanistan, and he was stationed in Portugal in the Azores, and I was wanting to do a European vacation coming off of Afghanistan, and it just made sense. He was already in Europe. I wanted to go to Europe, so we decided to meet up. He invited our other friend, Anthony. And I've known Spencer since I was like 5 years old, and I've known Anthony since we were like 13. So we all met up actually after kind of doing our own thing for about a week. We all met up in Amsterdam, and there was a lot of things that made us want to stay in Amsterdam. We were having a lot of fun.
I've heard it's a very fun place. I've never been. It's on my to-do list.
Yeah. I can't talk about any of it as a congressional candidate, but it was a good time. It was a good time, and we debated staying in Amsterdam a little bit longer, but we had already purchased our train tickets to go from Amsterdam to Paris, so we decided to stick with the original plan. There were a lot of things that kind of put us in that time and place just by chance. We got on the train in the wrong spot because we helped an elderly British gentleman, and then we only moved up to first class where our seats were because the Wi-Fi wasn't working. And then I even switched Spencer's seat, so he was on the aisle and I was on the window. And about 3 hours into the trip, we heard a gunshot and breaking glass come from behind us. He didn't really know what to think of it at the time until a train employee came running away from the noise at a full sprint. I looked back to see what he was running away from, and there was a shirtless man with an AK-47. Spencer was waking up at that time and turned around to see what I was looking at with a scared look in my eye, and saw what I was seeing. And he ducked down next to me, and I hit him on the shoulder and said, like, "Let's go," or "Go get him," or something like that. And, I kind of meant in a second when he gets a little bit closer, maybe after he kills a few people and has to reload. But to his credit, the second I hit him on the shoulder, Spencer was gone. And I didn't even know that he was gone until he was halfway to the guy. So I got up and followed him. Spencer had tackled him. He was on the ground. I picked up the AK-47 that was on the ground, tried to shoot the terrorist with it. Spencer had him in a chokehold. It didn't work. Then before I could do anything else, the terrorist pulled out a handgun and was trying to line it up with the back of Spencer's head. And I then dropped the AK-47, pried the handgun out of his hands, hit him in the face a few times with it. Then the terrorist had pulled out a knife and was cutting Spencer on the back of his neck. And so Spencer kicked him off of him, and we were all kind of punching him, kicking him, doing whatever we could do to survive. Finally, we kind of got control of him. I put the handgun to the back of his head and told him, stop resisting, stop resisting. I don't think he spoke English, so it probably didn't help much. So I pulled the trigger, handgun didn't go off. I cycled it and realized that it was empty. And what had actually happened was, before we even got involved, there were 2 passengers waiting to use the restroom. And the terrorist was in there getting all of his weapons and everything ready, watched the jihadist video on his phone. And he was in there for so long that these 2 gentlemen were waiting to use the restroom. And he comes out with an AK-47. One of the guys immediately knew what was going on and started choking the terrorist with the AK pinned between their bodies. The other guy was trying to get the AK-47. And a train employee, the same one that we saw run past us, broke them up thinking it was a regular fight. And then the first guy ran to the back of the train. The train employee ran to the front of the train past us. And right before we noticed him, the other guy, Mark, ended up getting the AK-47, and then the terrorist pulled out the handgun, accidentally dropped the magazine, shot the 1 round in the chamber into Mark's neck, and that was the gunshot and breaking glass that we originally heard that alerted us that something was wrong. Oh my gosh. And at that point, we were getting pretty frustrated. So I threw the handgun. Spencer put him in another chokehold. I picked the AK-47 back up and hit him in the head a few times until he stopped fighting, and I watched him go unconscious from Spencer's chokehold. At that time, Spencer was, continuing to choke him because he wanted to kill the guy, frankly, even though he was unconscious. And the only thing that stopped him was I looked up and saw Mark, the gentleman that was shot in the neck, trying to stand up with blood squirting out of his neck. And once again, being the good friend that I am, I told Spencer, hey, go get that guy. And Spencer, to be fair, was an EMT in the Air Force, so that was right up his lane. So he crawled over, stopped the bleeding on Mark's neck wound. I was infantry in the National Guard, and I took control of the AK-47. A British gentleman offered his assistance, and we just told him to watch the terrorist. I cycled the AK-47 thinking it wasn't loaded, and a round came out of the chamber with a dent in the back of the primer, which means that the terrorist had actually tried to fire the AK-47 and the weapon functioned fine. It was just bad ammunition. So I kind of made some remark as to how lucky we got. I went back, checked the rest of the train, came back up, unloaded the weapons. The British guy that we had left the terrorist with had actually hogtied the terrorist with neckties. And then I went over and helped Mark with his neck wound. Spencer had pretty much stopped all the bleeding, but we just looked for other injuries and things like that. And he had lost a tremendous amount of blood, and I didn't think he was going to make it, but he did in fact survive. Spencer saved his life, and everything kind of worked out the way it was supposed to, I guess. And we handled the situation for about 20 minutes until we got to the train station, and police and EMTs took over.
Wow. Well, obviously, quite a tale to tell. I'm sure you've told that many times. When you were in the moment, just to go back for a second, when you're in a moment like that, do you feel like you're in a movie? Like, did it even feel real to you as it was happening? Because I have to imagine, and I've seen people who I think were on the train with you guys talk about it, that they felt like it was just like a movie, like they almost didn't believe it at first. Could you even, like, how was that in the moment? Did you know what a big deal this was? Did you know what a big deal this would be around the world and back here at home, that you guys were able to thwart this attack?
So yeah, I honestly had no idea it would turn into what it ended up turning into. We really didn't think it would be that big of a story. I figured French media would cover it, but I did not expect it to become kind of an international story. But at the time, I knew exactly what was going on. I turned around, saw the guy with the AK-47. And honestly, I was just like, my initial thought was
not a normal situation, right? On a train.
Yeah. My initial thought was just like, there's no way, like, this is how I die. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it was like your heart sinks and like time stops for half a second. And then you just get a tremendous adrenaline rush. And, pretty much we knew we had to go for it. We were at the front of a train going 150 miles an hour. The guy was behind us. There was no place we could run to. There's no place we could hide. We couldn't jump off the train. We literally had zero options other than confronting him. And we did what we had to do, and frankly got really lucky, or God was looking out for us or something, because there was a lot of things that went our way that probably shouldn't have.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Honestly, it really feels like you guys were lucky. Somebody was certainly looking out for you. Were you a person of faith before this attack? Are you now? Do you feel like it has changed because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely Christian Lutheran, and I was before that, but that really kind of reaffirmed it in my mind.
Yeah,
you can't really can't go through something like that. It's like being involved in a terrorist attack is more rare than being struck by lightning. And then surviving it is a whole nother story. And then being the ones that stop it is a whole nother thing. And on top of that, with the guns not going off, the handgun not being loaded, it was just like, we tried everything we could to kill each other and none of it worked. Like I said, even Mark, who was the only person that ended up getting shot, made a full recovery. Spencer had 3 deep lacerations on his body, 2 of which were only about an inch away from his carotid artery. And he made a full recovery. There was just a lot of things that went into it that just you can't just think it's all statistics. They're just the odds were too long for us.
Well, you know what was actually making me think of as you were telling the story is the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the people on the plane that ultimately crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Those people took action like you guys did, and thank God you had a different result. But I guess, look, you're in a moment like that, and you're right. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? You really have no other option than to act and to do, I guess, what comes naturally. Obviously, you served our country. I want to say thank you for that. And one of your friends that was there. Were you guys all military there, or just the two of you?
I was Army National Guard. Spencer was Air Force, and Anthony was just a college student.
Wow. I mean, do you feel like the training that you guys had, though, for, like the military training came in handy? Did it kick in? Did something that you had learned previously come to you in this moment?
Not in the moment. Our training kind of kicked in quite a bit during the aftermath. With Spencer, obviously, with his medical training. Me with just the weapons knowledge and how to handle situations like that. I mean, in the moment, though, to be honest, it was just, I think the fact that we'd known each other for so long. I mean, we had joked about something like this happening. So once we all turned around and saw the guy, we were all on the same page immediately. I mean, we pretty much knew exactly what we were going to do. And just because of, a lot of it was just, hindsight being 2020, it seemed like our whole lives were preparing us for this moment. I mean, Spencer did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's how he knew how to choke the guy out using a blood choke. I just happened to own an AK-47, which is how I knew how to use the terrorist AK-47 once I got my hands on it. Same thing with the handgun. It was a Browning high power. I owned a 1911, which is very similar. A lot of our knowledge that just by chance we had acquired over our lives and a little bit through the military all just kind of came to a head in that moment.
Wow. And I don't want to make you relive it too many times, but I'm always curious when people have situations like this that they live through. How traumatic has this been, though, kind of for you going forward? I imagine there had to be some PTSD, something that you've had to deal with. I mean, how has this impacted you since it has happened? Obviously, you've had years now. But I imagine there are still things that remind you of it. And how did you overcome that, or have you overcome that?
Honestly, we didn't. I don't think really any of us got anything too bad. I mean, I had like a lot of weird, bad dreams for about 2 years straight afterwards, and I still get them from time to time. But it's nothing compared to what a lot of other people have to live with.
That's true. Well, let me ask you this, though, because you decided that you'd served our country in one capacity. You wanted to run for office and serve our country in another capacity. Tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, that I'm talking about 2020, and it sounds like you are still pursuing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We announced that we're running again for 22 about 2.5 months ago, and so far it's been fantastic. I mean, there's a kind of the whole background was, we did had the terrorist attack. We wrote a book. Did a movie. I was on Dancing with the Stars. A lot of interesting things.
We're going to get there in a second.
Yeah. And, I just kind of was doing whatever kind of I felt like up until that point. And then I met a state senator of mine on a plane just by chance. And we started talking about politics. We agreed on most everything. And he encouraged me to look at politics as a way of continuing to kind of fight for what we believe in. And it kind of blew him off at first because, who wants to get involved in politics these days?
Oh, God, you're telling me.
And honestly, like the more I learned about it, the more I got angry enough and wanted to do something, especially in Southwestern Oregon. We have these massive forest fires every year. Mm-hmm. It's tied specifically to the amount of tax dollars that counties get here. And it's tied to our economy. And really, both of those things have been in shambles since the early 90s. When they changed the forest policy that had been good for about 70 years in Oregon, at least. So it really made me want to change something. I mean, this affects people's day-to-day lives, and it's incredible to me that a bunch of bureaucrats in DC can ruin the way of life for a huge section of the state of Oregon.
Oh, not just for the state of Oregon. I mean, look at what's happening in our country right now, Alek. I mean, we have, starting at the top and straight on down, we have folks that clearly do not have the best interests of the American people at heart, starting with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. You go all the way down the line. It's honestly why I hope that we have more people like you who step up to the plate in 22. I think it's going to be a really, really important year. I think perhaps maybe the most important midterm election in modern history, because when you see the direction that our country is going in right now, and you think about the long-term effect of keeping things the way they are right now, we can't sustain it. We cannot have open borders. We cannot have inflation through the roof, gas prices going up, people being paid to stay home instead of going to work, small businesses crumbling, appeasing our adversaries across the world instead of standing up to them. We can't sustain it as a country. And so I want to encourage you and encourage all the people out there who are listening and watching. Where can people go to find out more information about your run?
Alek4Oregon.com, ALEKFOR Oregon.com. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, no, we need more people like you to step up, and we got to really pay attention. Now, you talked about the movie 1517 to Paris. It was directed by Clint Eastwood. You got to play yourself. Now, there's so many things I want to ask you about this. First of all, how was it working with Clint Eastwood? I mean, a Hollywood legend, somebody that, by the way, has not been shut down by woke politics in Hollywood, somebody that has been very clear about where he stands on the issues. How was that experience for you? And what was it like to play yourself? Because I feel like, God forbid, I ever had to play myself in a movie, I would just laugh the whole time because I cannot take myself too seriously. None of us in the Trump family can at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, Clint Eastwood was just as cool as everyone hopes he is. I mean, we got to work with him for like 3.5 months, seeing him pretty much every day. And it's rare that you build up someone like a celebrity in your mind and then actually get to meet them and they don't disappoint on any level.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's, he's funny. He's still with it. He was in incredibly good shape. I mean, he was 88 at the time we filmed our movie, and we would work out with him, and he did 10 body weight dips. I mean, the dude's in incredible shape. He's great. He's awesome. No, he's, like I said, everything you hope he would be, he is. And we, again, I mean, it was kind of a weird scenario, but we had, agreed to, after the book, we agreed to sell our rights to Warner Brothers and Clint Eastwood because we'd met him, again, just by chance at a event in Los Angeles and joked about, him making the movie. And he said, "Oh, well, send me the book. You never know." And again, to his credit, Spencer followed up and sent him the book, and he read it in 3 days and just called Spencer out of the blue and said, "Let's do it." Then after, a few months of helping edit the script and talking about what happened over and over again in very exacting detail, we were about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks before the movie was actually to start filming. And we all flew down there, and he said, "How would you guys feel about doing it again?" And we said, "Oh yeah, we'll, reenact it and show the actors, where everything was and how we were expanding."
He was like, no, that's
yeah. And they said, no, I want you guys to do it again. And we're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Do you want to play yourselves in the movie?" And we were like, obviously, of course, you can't turn Clint Eastwood down when he asks you something like that. So we agreed to do it, and 10 days later we were filming. But I mean, at that point, it was only about 2 years after the terrorist attack. So everything was still very fresh in our minds. So it really wasn't even acting. We just did everything we did the first time, just again for cameras.
Wow. How was it seeing yourself like on a screen that big? Because I got to tell you, even like if I do an interview and I see myself like at home on our TV, I'm sort of like, ooh, that's a really big screen, not in a movie theater. Was that kind of like, did that mess with you at all? Or were you just like, yeah, I was just sort of born to be on the big screen like this? Not a big deal.
Oh, no, we thought it was the coolest thing ever. I mean, it was the first time we watched it all the way through was at Warner Brothers, right after they had got the edits together with Clint Eastwood in the room with all the big producers. I mean, it was just even watching it the first time was just such an experience. It was great. I loved it.
And you weren't, I mean, that wasn't enough for you, a book, a movie. Then you went on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, was there ever a moment in all of this that you were like, you know what? maybe Dancing with the Stars will ask me to be on there. Did you want to do it? How did this work?
Well, that was actually honestly even more strange because I actually did Dancing with the Stars before the movie and before the book. I did it only a week after the terrorist attack.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Wow.
I did my first stateside interview a week after the terrorist attack, and the same day I got a call from the casting director asking me to do it, and I flew home for a day, packed my bags, and then flew back for, I think it was Good Morning America when we announced that I was going to be on the show. So I was only like 8 or 9 days after the terrorist attack that I was officially on Dancing with the Stars. So everything was like very, I didn't really have much time to catch my breath, but honestly, it was a lot of fun. It's a great show. They have great people on the show, and I mean, it might sound a little bit corny, but I had a blast. It was a good time.
I mean, I got to tell you, it looks like I would love to do it. I think it looks like a really cool thing to do. Are you still dancing? Did you learn any moves that you are still utilizing today? Did it come in handy?
No, I'm retired from dancing, period. I didn't do it before the show, and I didn't do it after.
Just while you were on there and forced to do it. God, this is like my husband when we go to a wedding or something. I just have to like force him to do it. And I think the only time that my husband truly has danced was actually at our wedding when, side note, we had to like take major dance lessons just to get a box step. I don't know if you learned that, but all the dance people out there that are our viewers are gonna know about that. Yeah, he's not a big dancer, but maybe if I get him on Dancing with the Stars, maybe it could loosen him up a bit. I'll see if I could. Maybe they would have him. What do you think? Were they political at all with you? Would you think they would have a Trump on that show?
I'm not sure if they'd go that far, but
I know, probably not.
They had a lot of great people. I mean, they were a lot of them were definitely liberal leaning, but there's actually a lot of them are Mormon, so they kind of lean a little bit more conservative, and so they were. It was a mixed bag, but honestly, everybody on the show was very nice, and so we didn't get into politics a whole lot regardless.
Well, and it was also, I mean, truthfully, it was probably before things got as crazy as they seem to have gotten now. So who knows these days what would happen. So let's see, stopped a terrorist attack. You were on Dancing with the Stars, acted in a Hollywood movie in front of Oscar winners. What was the hardest one of all, Alec? Dare I ask?
Shoot, I mean, honestly,
challenging.
The movie was just fun. Dancing with the Stars, I guess, would be harder, but it's nothing compared to running for Congress, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No
politics
kidding.
Is a whole other animal. I mean, I always joke that too many people liked me, so I decided to run for politics. So, and that's really true. I mean, it's people that have never met me who previously had nothing but good things to say about me. All of a sudden, they hate me just because I'm a Republican. And I mean, it's incredible the state of politics in this country, how divisive things have gotten. I really wish we could take a couple steps back to like the late 90s or early 2000s, but who knows? Yeah,
no, it's crazy stuff out there. In fact, I don't know if you've seen any of this. I don't even want to give it credit because it's so partisan and it's so obvious what's going on. But this January 6th commission that they have, this whole thing going on in Congress, I got to tell you, talk about a Hollywood-worthy performance. Adam Kinzinger basically crying, Adam Schiff crying. These people where were they last year, Alec, whenever people were terrorizing cities all over America? Where were they when they were burning down police stations and federal courthouses? Where were they when small businesses were getting destroyed, when people were getting killed? Where were they then? I didn't see anybody upset back then about any of this stuff. But now they're all out of sorts about it. It's such a sham. It's such a charade. It's such a show. I almost can't bring myself to watch it, but I feel like I need to check in on it every now and again just to see how ridiculous they have gotten with this thing. Any thoughts on that or anything, I mean, do you think that this is going to be a fair situation, this January 6th commission that Nancy Pelosi has headed up, and shocker, put no Trump supporting Republicans on the board there at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, I was going to say she kicks the only two real Republicans off of the commission. So it's obviously going to be very partisan. And I mean, a lot of Republicans even voted for this in the House. And it's like, what did you expect was going to happen? I mean, you can't be that politically naive. Everybody knew that this is exactly what was going to happen. They're going to milk this for all it's worth. And I'm not saying January 6th was a good thing. It wasn't. But everybody needs to be held to the same standard under the law. You can't, I mean, it seems like as a Republican, you have people that burned down cities for a year straight, and especially last summer, and rioted and did all these things that are getting released on bail or just not charged whatsoever. But yet Republicans can't even post on Facebook. I mean, I don't even really, January 6th is a whole other issue. But when you have Republicans that are getting censored on Facebook and Twitter, but people are burning down cities and calling for actual violence that are still totally fine. I mean, the double standard is incredible. And I think the average person can see it. And we Republicans need to take back the House and the Senate this year. We absolutely need to. And I think the average person can see through the double standard. And even if they don't care about January 6th or the riots, everybody knows how much they're paying at the gas pump. So, I feel a red wave coming. And frankly, we need a red wave or else we're in a lot of trouble.
It's so true. And by the way, who doesn't want to truly find out, Alek, what happened on January 6th? Because we should get to the bottom of it. It was something that none of us ever want to see happen again. Nobody thinks it was positive, but the way that they are framing this and the way that they have set this up is so obvious. As we are, kind of mid-year 2021, we're rounding the corner to 22, a midterm election year, when you've got a president like Joe Biden, who has done an absolutely terrible job as president of the United States, a vice president in Kamala Harris, who went down to the wrong part of the border when she finally went down there, as our borders are, two people who are running America into the ground. You don't think that the Democrats are getting a little worried about 2022? I think they are. This is all part of the plan to try and frame every Republican as some sort of a lunatic and bad, and as though we all wanted January 6th to happen. Of course we didn't, but I truly, I think most Americans would love to get to the bottom of it, but you're not going to get it with this commission, with these people. This is a partisan situation. They've already decided what happened, and none of this matters. It's all for show, and we can see through it. I think you're right, and I hope most Americans can see through it, because gosh, if we let something like this happen, this show that they're putting on, dictate the future of America, I think we're going to be in really bad shape. So people better pay attention to 2022 in a really big way. So I want to give you a chance to answer a question I ask everybody. What do you think is the best part of America, Alek, and what do you think is the biggest threat to the future of our country?
Well, the best part of America is Southwest Oregon. Sorry. All
right, best location maybe. All right.
Yeah. No, I really think that Americans have a desire for freedom that is unmatched. I mean, especially with first-generation immigrants. I mean, my dad was an immigrant, and they have an appreciation for America that even a lot of Americans don't have. And I really love to see the love for America that, a lot of these people that fled communist countries have. I mean, I wish I wish a lot more Americans could kind of see where they're coming from, because I think in some regards we don't have that worldly aspect. We don't know how good we actually have it. So what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
Well, what do you think is the biggest threat to the future of our country? Because there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, we just touched on a little bit of it, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the biggest threat to our country is honestly the national debt, followed up closely by this extreme leftward trend in the Democrat Party, as well as the inflation and rising cost of living that we're seeing under the Biden administration. I think all three of those are pretty much neck and neck as to what's going to harm this country the most first. But I mean, overall, it just seems like even if the Republicans can take back the House and the Senate this year, Republicans still add to the national debt almost just as much as Democrats. I mean, it just seems like it's ballooning out of control, and we really need to get that under control no matter who's in office. But I feel like that's a lot to ask, and I doubt that it's ever going to happen, frankly.
Well, maybe it'll happen if we get Alek Skarlatos in Congress in 2023. Let's work on that, and then you could take that head on. You know, before I let you go, I just want to get your thoughts on this because I have been watching the Olympics. Normally, I'm a huge sports fan in general. I absolutely love, especially the Summer Olympics, and I just want to get your take on it because for me, it's felt very different than previous years. Yeah, I know we have the COVID situation. You don't have as many spectators there actually watching. The athletes couldn't have their family and friends there with them in Japan for the Olympics. But aside from that, it seems very odd to me that here we have found ourselves in a situation in America where you have one party pushing for people to hate our country. If you don't have pride in something, then I don't know what the alternative is, embarrassment of something. So if you have a group of people, and I'm of course talking about the Democrats, encouraging people to be embarrassed by their country or ashamed of their country, which is apparently what their goals have been. And then you see that it doesn't feel like America has done as well in the Summer Olympics thus far as we normally do. I got to just think for a second that maybe if we had the pride of, say, the 1980 Miracle on Ice men's hockey team, that perhaps, I don't know, America might be winning a little bit more. Have you watched any of the Olympics? Do you have any thoughts on it? Because I'm just like, what is going on here? I feel like the things we normally are just really champions of, we're really not doing it this time around. I don't know.
Well, I think part of that would be allowing athletes who smoke marijuana to go to the Olympics instead of athletes that are male competing as women to go to the Olympics. I mean, I think our priorities are a little screwed up there when it comes to what we should be pushing for. But I mean, also, I mean, yeah, it's just, I mean, if you want to protest the American flag at a sporting event, I mean, that's one thing. I still disagree with it. I still think it's harmful to the health of our country, and it's really a symptom of what's going on in our country rather than a cause. But when you go to the Olympics in particular, you're there representing your country. I mean, there's people from communist countries that have more pride in their country than a lot of our American athletes. I mean, it's really sad to see. And I don't, like I said, I don't really think it's causing anything. I just think it's a symptom of the hatred a lot of people have for their own country. And again, they don't realize how lucky they have it. I mean, especially the people that are, you know, wanting us to go farther and farther to the left to the point of being communist. I mean, go visit some of these communist countries. You're not going to be impressed. You're not going to want to move there. You're not going to want socialized medicine. You're not going to want a controlling regime that locks people up for dissent and that can control social media even more so than ours is being controlled in the United States. I mean, it's not a path we want to go down. And I wish some of these people were a little bit more worldly to realize that.
Oh, amen to that. I'll second that. Well, Alek Skarlatos, I want to say thank you for coming on The Right View. Good luck next November 22. We'll be looking out to see what happens. And again, thank you to you for serving our country. And man, what a great job you and your friends did. I'm sure you've heard it many times before, but just really amazing miracle type stuff that you guys were able to thwart that attack, come out on the other side unharmed, Dancing with the Stars movie, book, like all of it. Now a run for Congress. So good luck with everything. Thank you for joining us on The Right View. And to everybody at home, thank you as always for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.